I thought 20 years of marriage meant something. Then my wife chose her ex-boyfriend's birthday party over our anniversary dinner, vanished all night, and came back at dawn barefoot and crying. What she confessed next shattered everything I believed about love, trust, and the man watching us from the shadows. My name is Arthur Thorne. I'm 45 years old, and I've been the head mechanic at Midwestern Manufacturing for 12 years. It's honest work that leaves grease under your fingernails and pride in your chest. Alara, my wife, works as a supervisor at First National Bank. We've got 2 kids. Alastair, 17, who thinks he knows everything, and Isabel, 15, who's got more sense than both of us. 20 years of marriage, 2 decades of building a life together, raising kids, paying mortgages. I thought we were solid. Shows what I knew. The trouble started on a Tuesday in March. I'd planned something special for our anniversary weekend. Dinner at that fancy steakhouse, maybe a getaway if money allowed. The factory had cut overtime, and finances were tight. That's when Alara dropped the bomb. She stood in our kitchen, still wearing her bank uniform, looking everywhere except at me. Arthur, she said, using that tone I'd learned to dread. I need to tell you something about Saturday. Saturday, our anniversary. I sat down my coffee and waited. In 20 years of marriage, you learn to read storm clouds in your spouse's voice. Magnus is having a birthday party, she continued. His sister, Ingrid, is organizing it. Just some old college friends. Magnus Olsson, her ex-boyfriend from before we met. The guy who'd blown his chance and spent 20 years acting like God's gift whenever we saw him around town. On our anniversary, I kept my voice level. Alara nodded, looking guilty. I know the timing isn't great, but I already told his sister I'd come. It would be rude to back out. Rude to back out of another man's party on our anniversary. I let that sink in. Here I was working double shifts for a special dinner, and she was worried about being rude to her ex's family. What about our reservations? I asked. Can't we do that another night? This is important, Arthur. These people were a big part of my life once. Once past tense, but apparently not past enough. I wanted to argue, wanted to remind her that married people don't abandon their spouses on anniversaries for exes, but 20 years taught me to pick battles carefully. Fine, I said, the word tasting like sawdust. Go to the party. The relief on her face should have been my first real warning. A wife shouldn't look that relieved about disappointing her husband. That night, lying beside her, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. 20 years, and she was choosing someone else's celebration over ours. I should have trusted that instinct. The morning after, Saturday, dragged by like torture. I watched Alara get ready for Magnus' party with care she hadn't shown in months. That green dress, the one that made me remember why I fell for her. She spent an hour on makeup, 30 minutes on hair. You look beautiful, I told her at the door. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Don't wait up. These things run late. Those were her last words before everything changed. I tried staying busy. Watched a game with Alastair. Helped Isabel with history homework. Fixed the guest bathroom faucet. But as hours passed, that gnawing feeling got worse. By midnight, I was pacing. By 2 a.m., checking my phone every 5 minutes. No texts, no calls. Alastair noticed me wandering around. Is Mom okay? He asked. She's fine, I lied. Just catching up with old friends. Dawn broke gray and cold. I'd given up on sleep around 4, nursing my 3rd coffee when I heard a car door slam. My heart jumped. Finally home. But looking out the window, it wasn't our Honda. It was a beat-up Ford. The first I didn't recognize. The front door opened, and my world tilted. Alara stood there looking destroyed. Makeup smeared, green dress wrinkled and stained, barefoot, carrying one broken heel. But her eyes got me. Red, swollen from crying, filled with terror. Arthur, she whispered. She collapsed against me. I held my wife while she sobbed, smelling alcohol, cigarette smoke, and something else. Her whole body shook. What happened? I asked. She cried harder. The kids came downstairs. Alastair's face went hard. My boy growing up too fast. Isabel stood there with tears in her eyes. Mom, Isabel whispered. I looked at my daughter over Alara's head. Take your brother upstairs. Your mother's not feeling well. Alastair started arguing, but something in my expression stopped him. They went upstairs, whispering in the hallway. Alara pulled back, looking at me with damaged eyes. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Something happened last night." My blood turned to ice. In 20 years, I'd never seen her this broken. "Did he hurt you?" She shook her head quickly. "No, not like that. But Arthur, I made a terrible mistake. Magnus kissed me." The words hit like a sledgehammer. I stepped back, needing space. "You kissed him back?" "No," she said quickly. "I pushed him away, told him I was married, that I loved you. But people saw. There were pictures. Then things got complicated. Complicated. 20 years of marriage reduced to complicated. Why didn't you come home?" She looked down. His girlfriend, Greta, showed up. It was a fight. People drinking, yelling. I got scared. Lost my phone. Magnus said I could sleep on his couch until morning. She slept at another man's house on our anniversary. "Get cleaned up," I said. "We'll talk when the kids aren't home." She nodded, heading upstairs like an old woman. Watching my wife walk away with that broken shoe, I realized something had shattered that might never be repaired. By Sunday afternoon, I'd sent the kids to my mother's house. Eleanor Thorne had raised 4 boys and could handle anything life threw at her. When I called and told her we needed some space to work things out, she didn't ask questions, just told me to bring Alistair and Isabel over. "Your father and I had our rough patches too," she said quietly as I dropped them off. "Marriage isn't for quitters, son, but it ain't for fools either." Wise words from a woman who'd been married 47 years before cancer took Dad. Back home, Alara and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table like strangers. She'd showered and changed into jeans and an old sweater, but she still looked fragile, broken. "Tell me everything," I said. "From the beginning." She took a shaky breath. The party was at Magnus' apartment. His sister Ingrid organized it, invited maybe 20 people from college. I thought it would be harmless, just catching up with old friends, but it wasn't harmless. She shook her head. "Magnus pulled me aside around 10. Said he'd been thinking about me, about what we used to have. I told him I was happily married, but he kept pushing. Said I looked unhappy, that he could see it in my eyes." My hands balled in a fist under the table. "And then he kissed me, right there in the hallway where anyone could see. I pushed him away immediately, told him he was drunk and stupid. But people had their phones out, Arthur. They were taking pictures, recording videos. The thought of my wife's humiliation being broadcast on social media made my jaw tighten. What happened next? His girlfriend, Greta, showed up unexpectedly. Someone must have sent her one of those videos because she came in screaming, started throwing things, calling me names I won't repeat. The whole party turned into chaos. I studied my wife's face, looking for tells, for signs she was lying. 20 years of marriage teaches you to read between the lines. "You could have called me," I said. "Could have left right then." Her voice got smaller. My phone got smashed when Greta threw it against the wall. And honestly, I was humiliated. I didn't want to drag you into that mess. Didn't want you to see me like that. "So, you stayed at his place." She nodded, tears starting again. "Ingrid offered me her guest room. The roads were bad anyway with all the rain. It seemed like the smart thing to do." "Smart?" "Like abandoning your husband on your anniversary was smart." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check Facebook. Your wife's famous now." I showed Alara the message. Her face went white. "Arthur, please don't look. It's not what it seems." But I was already pulling up Facebook, searching for anything related to the party. It didn't take long to find it. There was my wife in that green dress with another man's lips pressed against hers. The caption read, "Some people never learn. Happy birthday, Magnus." The comments were worse. People I didn't know making jokes about cheating wives and clueless husbands. My stomach turned as I scrolled through them. Jesus, Alara, this is everywhere. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I didn't know they were filming. "I swear to you, Arthur, I didn't kiss him back." I stared at the video, watching it loop over and over. She was right. She did push him away. But the damage was done. Our private business was now public entertainment. "Who sent me this message?" I asked, holding out my phone. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe someone from the party." Something about her tone made me look at her sharply. She was hiding something. "Alara, is there something else you're not telling me?" She hesitated, and in that pause, I knew there was more. There's someone else you need to know about, Alara said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I set down my phone and gave her my full attention. After 20 years, I could tell when she was about to drop another bomb. Ragnar Voss. He works at the bank with me. He's been difficult lately. Difficult how? She wrapped her arms around herself like she was cold. He's obsessed with me, Arthur. Leaves notes on my desk. Shows up at places where he knows I'll be. I tried reporting it to HR, but he's the nephew of one of the board members. My blood started heating up. How long has this been going on? Months. Maybe 6 or 7. At first, I thought it was harmless flirting, but it escalated. He started commenting on what I wore, what I ate for lunch, things I never told him. And you didn't think to mention this to your husband? She flinched at my tone. I thought I could handle it myself. I didn't want you to worry. And honestly, I was afraid of what you might do. She was right to be afraid. Ragnar Voss was about to have a very bad day. Was he at the party? I asked. Alara nodded reluctantly. He wasn't invited. Just showed up around 11 o'clock. Said he was in the neighborhood. Started taking pictures and videos of everyone. It was creepy. The pieces started clicking into place. The anonymous message. The Facebook post. Someone had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to cause maximum damage. You think he sent me that text? I don't know. Maybe. He's unstable, Arthur. He's former military. Served 2 tours in Afghanistan. I think he has problems. Problems? Great. My wife had attracted the attention of a psycho with combat training. Where does he live? I asked, standing up. Alara grabbed my arm. What are you going to do? I'm going to have a conversation with Ragnar Voss. Arthur, no. You can't confront him. What if he's dangerous? I looked down at my wife, saw the fear in her eyes. But it wasn't just fear of Ragnar. She was afraid of me, too. Afraid of what I might do when I got my hands on the man who'd been stalking her. Maybe she should be. I'm not going to hurt him, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. I'm just going to make it clear that his behavior stops now. Please, let me handle this through proper channels. Talk to HR again. File a police report. I almost laughed. Proper channels, Alara? This guy has been harassing you for months, and you didn't even tell me. Proper channels clearly aren't working. She stood up, blocking my path to the door. I'm begging you, Arthur. Don't do anything stupid. Think about the kids. I was thinking about the kids. About what kind of father lets some psycho stalk his wife and get away with it. But, looking at Alara's face, seeing the genuine terror there, I made a decision that probably saved us both a lot of trouble. Fine, I said. We do this your way first. But if Ragnar Voss so much as looks at you wrong again, all bets are off. She nodded gratefully, but I could see in her eyes that she knew this wasn't over. Ragnar had made it personal the moment he decided to mess with my family. And men like me don't forget when someone crosses that line. The next morning, I called my buddy Detective Finn at the police station. We'd grown up together, played football in high school, and I trusted him more than any official channel. Finn, I need a favor, I said when he picked up. What's going on, Arthur? I've got a stalker situation involving Alara. Guy named Ragnar Voss. Works at First National. Been harassing her for months. Finn's voice got serious. You got evidence? Anonymous texts, social media posts, workplace harassment. The bank won't do anything because he's connected. Bring me what you have. I'll see what I can do unofficially. An hour later, I was sitting in Finn's patrol car in the First National parking lot. He'd changed out of uniform, wearing plain clothes, so this wouldn't look official. There's Ragnar, I said, pointing to a thin guy getting out of a beat-up Honda. Finn studied him through binoculars. Doesn't look like much, but the dangerous ones usually don't. You want me to have a word with him? Yeah, but I want to be there when you do it. Finn shook his head. Bad idea. You're emotionally involved. Let me handle this professionally. I watched my friend approach Ragnar in the parking lot. Even from a distance, I could see Ragnar's body language change when Finn introduced himself. His shoulders hunched, his head darted around like a trapped animal. The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes. When Finn came back, he was frowning. That boy ain't right in the head, Finn said. Kept talking about protecting Alara from you. Said she deserves better. That you don't appreciate what you have. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did you tell him? Told him if he contacts your family again, I'll arrest him for harassment. Mentioned that I know some veterans who don't take kindly to men who threaten their brothers' families. Think it'll work? Finn shrugged. With normal people, yeah. But Ragnar Voss isn't normal people. He's got that look, like he's always fighting a war and nobody else can see. That afternoon, I made another decision that probably saved my marriage. I drove to the bank and waited for Alara to get off work. Arthur, she said when she saw me in the parking lot. What are you doing here? Getting you transferred to a different branch, I said. I already talked to the regional manager. You start at the West Side location Monday. Her eyes widened. You can't just make career decisions for me. I'm not making career decisions. I'm making safety decisions. Ragnar works here, so you don't work here anymore. Simple as that. She started to argue, but something in my expression stopped her. This wasn't up for discussion. The West Side branch is actually a promotion, I continued. Better pay, better hours. Only reason you didn't apply there before was because it's farther from home. And how exactly did you convince them to transfer me? I looked at my wife, remembering the scared, broken woman who'd come home in tears 2 days ago. I told him the truth. I said that my wife was being harassed by a co-worker and management wasn't handling it. Mentioned that Detective Finn might be interested in their employee policies. For the first time since Saturday night, Alara smiled. Not a big smile, but real. You really think this will solve the problem? She asked. No, I said honestly. But it'll buy us time to figure out what comes next. 3 days later, Ragnar Voss proved that Finn's warning hadn't been enough. I was under the hood of a Chevy at the shop when my phone rang. Alara's name on the caller ID, but when I answered, I heard heavy breathing and what? Sounded like crying. Alara. Arthur, she whispered, voice shaking. He's here. My blood turned to ice. Where are you? Home. I came back from the grocery store and Ragnar was sitting on our front porch. He's just staring at the house. I was already reaching for my keys. Did you call Finn? He'll be here in 10 minutes. But Arthur, I'm scared. Ragnar looks different. Lock all the doors, close the blinds, and stay away from windows, I said, running to my truck. I'm 5 minutes out. The drive home was the longest 5 minutes of my life. When I turned onto our street, I saw Finn's patrol car and an ambulance. My heart nearly stopped. I found Finn standing in our front yard talking into his radio. When he saw me, his expression was grim. Is she okay? I asked. Alara is fine, but we got a problem. He pointed to our front porch where Ragnar was sitting in handcuffs, blood running down his face from a gash on his forehead. What happened? Near as I can tell, he was sitting on your porch when Alara got home. She locked herself inside and called us. When I got here, he was banging on the door with a rock, screaming about how you don't deserve her. I looked at the damage to our front door. Deep gouges in the wood where Ragnar had been attacking it with that rock. When I tried to detain him, Finn continued. He resisted. Said he had to save Alara from you. Took 3 of us to get him down. The paramedic was checking Ragnar's head wound. Up close, I could see the wild look in his eyes that Finn had mentioned. This wasn't just obsession anymore. This was full-blown psychotic break. Is he going away? I asked. Criminal trespass, destruction of property, resisting arrest. Judge will probably order a psychiatric evaluation, too. He won't be bothering your family for a while. That should have been the end of it. Ragnar locked up. Alara is safe. Family protected. But as I watched them load him into the ambulance, he looked right at me through the back window. Even with blood on his face and handcuffs on his wrists, Ragnar Voss smiled. And somehow I knew this was far from over. The next morning, I went to pick up Alistair and Isabel from my mother's house. Eleanor Thorne was waiting on her front porch with that look I remembered from childhood. The one that meant she had something important to say. Kids are still sleeping, she said. Figured you, and I should talk first. We sat in her kitchen, the same one where she'd raised 4 boys and buried a husband. The smell of coffee and bacon reminded me of Saturday mornings when life was simpler. Your father dealt with something like this once, she said without preamble. I looked up from my coffee. What do you mean? Before you were born, there was a man who took an unhealthy interest in me. Followed me to the grocery store, left flowers on the car. Your father handled it quiet-like. But he handled it. What did he do? Eleanor smiled, but there was steel in it. Let's just say the man decided to relocate to another state. Real sudden-like. Your father had a way of making his point clear without raising his voice. Times were different then, Mama. Men were different then, she corrected. Had more backbone. Didn't wait for other people to solve their problems. I knew she was talking about more than just Ragnar. She was talking about Alara, about the marriage problems I'd been pretending didn't exist. You think I'm handling this wrong? I asked. I think you're handling it like a modern man, instead of like my son, she said. All this therapy talk and police reports. Sometimes a problem needs solving the old-fashioned way. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She answered it, and I watched her face change. That was Alara, she said after hanging up. She's at the hospital. My heart stopped. What happened? Someone broke into your house last night. Alara went back to get some clothes and found the place torn apart. When she tried to leave, Ragnar was waiting in the driveway. I was already standing, reaching for my keys. How bad? I asked. He didn't hurt her physically, but Arthur, he had pictures. Pictures of her sleeping. Pictures of the kids. He'd been in your house before. The rage that flooded through me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. This wasn't just about my wife anymore. This was about my children's safety. Which hospital? I asked. St. Mary's. Finn's with her. Taking a statement. I kissed my mother's forehead. Keep the kids here until I call you. Arthur, she said as I headed for the door. Your father would be proud of the man you've become. But sometimes being a good man means doing hard things. I drove to the hospital with Eleanor's words echoing in my head. When I got there, Finn was waiting in the parking lot. How is she? I asked. Shaken up. But okay. We got Ragnar in custody. But there's something you need to see. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside were dozens of photos. Alara sleeping. The kids playing in the yard. Me working under the hood of cars. All taken from inside our house, or close enough to touch. How long? I asked. Best guess? Months. Maybe since the harassment started. Arthur, this guy's been living in your walls. Basically, we found a spare key hidden under your back porch. I thought about all the nights I'd slept peacefully while Ragnar Voss crept through my house, watching my family. The violation was complete. What's his bail? I asked. Finn looked uncomfortable. Judge set it at 50,000. His family posted it an hour ago. He's out with conditions. Can't go within 500 feet of your family. Can't contact you in any way. But Arthur, restraining orders are just paper. They don't stop bullets. I looked at the hospital entrance, knowing Alara was inside, probably scared and broken again. I need to see my wife, I said. Before you do, Finn said, there's something else. We searched his apartment. Found journals, plans. This wasn't just obsession, Arthur. He was planning to take her. The words hit me like cold water. Take her where? Had maps, camping gear, enough supplies for weeks. I think he was planning to kidnap Alara. Convince her you were the problem. In his mind, he was rescuing her. I stood there in that hospital parking lot, looking at photos of my violated home, thinking about my terrified wife and innocent children. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I found Alara in room 314, sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, fully dressed, but looking fragile. When she saw me, she started crying again. I'm sorry, she said. I know you told me not to go back to the house, but I needed clothes for work, and I thought in broad daylight. Stop, I said, pulling her into my arms. This isn't your fault. We held each other for a long time, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like we were actually together and fighting it. Finn told me about the journals, she said quietly, about what Ragnar was planning. That's not going to happen. She pulled back and looked at me. What are you thinking, Arthur? I can see it in your eyes. 20 years of marriage. She could read me like a book. I'm thinking about what my father would have done, I said. Your father lived in a different time. Maybe. But some things don't change. A man protects his family. Alara gripped my hands. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. I looked into her eyes. These eyes that had watched me grow from a young factory worker into a husband and father. I promise I won't do anything stupid, I said. It was true. What I was planning wasn't stupid. It was necessary. That afternoon, after taking Alara to stay with her sister, I drove to the address Finn had given me, Ragnar's family home, where he was staying since his release. It was a nice house in a good neighborhood, white picket fence, well-maintained lawn, the kind of place where psycho stalkers weren't supposed to live. Ragnar answered the door himself. Up close, he looked smaller than I'd expected, pale and thin with nervous eyes, but I could see the madness lurking behind them. Mr. Thorne, he said calmly, I was wondering when you'd show up. We need to talk about Alara. She's wasted on you. You know, a woman like that deserves someone who truly appreciates her beauty, her intelligence. I stepped closer, and he backed up into the house. I followed, closing the door behind me. Sit down, Ragnar. He sat on a worn couch, looking up at me with a mixture of fear and defiance. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to pack your things and leave town tonight. You're going to find somewhere far away from here and start a new life. He laughed, but it sounded forced. And if I don't? I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo Finn had sent me. His apartment wall covered with pictures of my wife. If you don't, these photos go to every social media platform, every local news station, every employer in a 50-mile radius, along with your full name, address, and criminal record. His face went white. You can't do that. I can and I will. But that's just the beginning, Ragnar. Because after I destroy your reputation, I'm going to make sure every veterans group, every military buddy, every person who ever served with you knows exactly what kind of man you really are. I leaned down until we were eye level. How do you think your army brothers would feel about a soldier who stalks innocent women and terrorizes children? Ragnar's hands started shaking. Whatever demons he was fighting, I was making them worse. She doesn't love you anymore, he said desperately. I've seen how she looks at you. The marriage is over. Maybe it is, I said. But that's between me and her. You don't get a vote. I straightened up and headed for the door. 24 hours, Ragnar. Then this gets ugly. As I reached the door, he called out behind me. What if I don't want to leave? I turned back and looked at him one more time. This broken man who tried to steal my life. Then you'll find out exactly what kind of man Eleanor Thorne raised, I said and walked out. Ragnar Voss was gone by morning. Finn called me at 7 a.m. with the news. Neighbors saw him loading a U-Haul around midnight. Left with his mother driving behind him in her car. Where'd they go? Don't know. Don't care. Point is, he's gone. I sat in my truck outside the factory, coffee growing cold in my hands. Part of me felt relieved. The other part felt like this was too easy. You think he'll stay gone? I asked. Hard to say, but Arthur, I did some checking. Ragnar's got family in Oregon. His uncle runs a logging operation out there. Might be starting fresh. Starting fresh. Like 20 years of terrorizing my family could just be erased with a change of address. I'm bringing my family home today, I said. Might want to change the locks first and maybe install a security system. Good advice. After work, I spent 3 hours changing every lock in the house and installing motion sensors around the property. When Alara and the kids came home that evening, our house looked like a fortress. Is all this really necessary? Alara asked, looking at the new deadbolts and window sensors. For now, yes. That night, lying in our own bed for the first time in a week, Alara and I had the conversation I'd been dreading. We need to talk about us, she said quietly. I know the marriage was in trouble before Ragnar, before the party. We both know that. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led us to this moment. So what do we do? I asked. I want to try counseling. Real counseling, not just talking to Father Michael. Okay. And Arthur, I need you to know something. Nothing happened with Magnus beyond that kiss. But you were right to be angry about the emotional stuff. I was having feelings I shouldn't have been having. The admission hurt, but it also felt like honesty for the first time in months. What? I asked. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped being husband and wife and started being just roommates going through the motions. She was right. We'd been sleepwalking through our marriage, too comfortable to change, too scared to admit we were drifting apart. Think. Counseling can fix that. I asked. I don't know, but I think we owe it to 20 years and 2 kids to find out. I rolled over and looked at my wife in the dim light from the hallway. No more secrets, I said. No more protecting each other's feelings instead of telling the truth. No more secrets, she agreed. 3 months later, Ragnar Voss sent a postcard from Oregon. No message, just a picture of Mount Hood. But the return address told me everything I needed to know. He was 1,500 miles away, working for his uncle's logging company. The marriage counseling was harder than fighting Ragnar had been. But slowly, week by week, Alara and I started remembering why we'd fallen in love in the first place. 6 months later, we renewed our vows in my mother's backyard. It wasn't the big church wedding we had 20 years earlier. Just family, close friends, and Father Michael saying words that felt brand new even though we heard them before. Alistair walked his mother down the aisle, looking proud and mature in his rented suit. Isabel was the maid of honor, crying happy tears for the first time in months. 20 years ago, I promised to love this woman through good times and bad. I said when it came time for personal vows. I thought I knew what that meant. I was wrong. I looked at Alara, beautiful in a simple blue dress, her eyes bright with tears. Bad times aren't just about money problems or sick kids. Bad times are about forgetting why you chose each other in the first place, about letting fear and pride build walls between you. Alara squeezed my hands. But good times, I continued. Good times are about choosing each other again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. When she said her vows, Alara's voice was steady and sure. I lost my way for a while, she said. Started looking for happiness in all the wrong places. But I learned something important. You can't fix a marriage by running away from it. You fix it by running toward each other. The reception was Eleanor's idea. Barbecue and beer in the backyard where I played as a kid. Simple, honest, real. As we danced to the same song we danced at our original wedding, Alara whispered in my ear. Think we'll make it to 40 years? Ask me in 20 years, I said. Finn came up to us as the evening wound down, looking official even in civilian clothes. Got some news, he said quietly. Ragnar Voss was arrested in Oregon last week. Stalking charges involving a co-worker at the logging company. I felt Alara tense in my arms. What's going to happen to him? She asked. Judge ordered mandatory psychiatric treatment. If he completes the program, charges get dropped. If not, he does 2 years. So, he gets locked up either way, I said. That's the idea. Later that night, as we cleaned up paper plates and folded chairs, Alistair approached me. Dad, can I ask you something? Sure, son. How do you know Mom was worth fighting for? I looked at my 17-year-old boy, almost a man now, trying to make sense of love and marriage and commitment. Because she's your mother, I said. Because we built something together that was bigger than both of us. And because sometimes the best things in life are the ones you have to fight to keep. Alistair nodded like that made sense. That night, lying next to my wife in our own bed, in our own house, with new locks and old love, I thought about the path that had brought us here. Ragnar Voss had nearly destroyed us, but in the end, he forced us to choose each other all over again. And this time, we'd chosen wisely.